This man is an absolute genius. The water heater at his girlfriend's house was broken, so she asked him to help repair it. But when he took it apart, he realized that there was no need to repair it, so he was going to remodel the inner lining of the water heater into a multifunctional wood stove. It can not only boil water for cooking but also have hot water for bathing. First, he polished the liner. Then he measured out a rectangle, 15 centimeters long by 13 centimeters wide, and cut off the excess in the center with a cutter. Then he drew a square where the pipe opening should be, and cut it with the cutter. At the same time, weld a steel mesh here. Then cut the other side of the tank. After cutting the other side of the tank, put it on an iron plate and draw a mark on it. Then cut and weld the circular plate to the tank. Be careful not to leave any gaps in the weld. Then place a 90-degree smoke pipe on top. Draw a mark on it to match the number, and cut off the round shape with a cutter. Then he welded the pipe in place. Then he cut a square tube 12 centimeters wide and 275 centimeters long. He puts it on the ashtray to make sure it's level and welds it together. This creates the ashtray. Here the inner lining of the wood stove is ready. Next, he wrapped some copper tubing around the surface of the liner and welded iron to the ends to hold it in place, and cut off the excess copper tubing. Then he found a large plastic bucket and measured the two rectangular gaps in the stove, and then he drew a slightly larger hole. He drew a slightly larger mark on the plastic bucket, and then he cut out the excess in the center according to the markings. After cutting, he puts the inner liner of the stove inside. Then he mixes some insulation wool and cement mortar. After mixing well, he poured it into a plastic bucket. This wraps the entire liner. Note that the doorway needs to be blocked with foam. Then he continued to pour cement mortar into it. When it's full, he finds an iron pot and cut off the bottom of the iron pot so that it would fit on top of the stove. Then he put a couple of hangers around the pot and continued to pour cement mortar on top, and then smoothed it out. He found a discarded water heater and used it as an insulated bucket. He removed the heating pipes inside and welded a pipe threaded connector to the drain, and then he cut the plastic bucket outside the stove. Cut the plastic bucket outside the wood stove with a cutter and remove it. After removing the barrels, a door is welded to the stove, and the two copper pipes need to be soldered to the front of the pipe. This will make it easier to connect to the insulating tube. Then move the wood stove to the corner and install the chimney, and connect the two hoses to the water inlet and outlet of the barrel, and a faucet underneath. The whole installation is now complete. Finally, I took some firewood to light it up for testing, but before the test you need to fill the bucket with water. Later you can install the water inlet pipe. At this point you can see the fire inside the stove is very strong. The food can be heated on top, and while the fire is heating, the water in the copper pipe is also gradually heated, so that the water in the barrel becomes hot. It's already almost 70 degrees after just a short while, so you don't have to worry about running out of hot water to take a bath. So what do you think of his idea?